On August 6, 1945, a single flash turned an entire city into ash. 3 days later, another city vanished. More than 200,000 people died. But one man stood at the center of both explosions and lived. This is not fiction. This is history. This is the unbelievable story of the man who survived 2 atomic bombs. Our story centers on a Japanese engineer named Tsutomu Yamaguchi. He was 29 years old, a husband, a father, an ordinary man with an ordinary job at Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. In early August 1945, Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on a business trip. He had no idea that his life and history were about to change forever. On the morning of August 6th, 1945, Yamaguchi was walking to the shipyard. At 8:15 a.m., the sky exploded. A blinding white flashed brighter than the sun. The blast threw him into the air. Buildings collapsed instantly. People were burned alive where they stood. Shadows were burned into the ground. Yamaguchi survived, but barely. His eardrums burst. His body was burned. The city was gone. Hiroshima had become hell on earth. Despite his severe injuries, Tsutomu Yamaguchi forced himself to move. His skin burned. His ears rang with an endless, painful silence. Every breath felt heavier than the last. Around him, Hiroshima no longer looked like a city. It was a graveyard. Buildings were flattened into shadows. Streets were filled with bodies, some still, some whispering for help. The air smelled of smoke, blood, and something unfamiliar, radiation. As night fell, fires burned uncontrollably across the ruins. Yamaguchi searched desperately for shelter, not knowing if another bomb would fall from the sky at any moment. He spent the night among the dead and dying, listening to distant cries slowly fade into silence. No food, no water, only fear. When morning came, the impossible happened. Against all logic, trains were still running. Covered in bandages, his body burned and broken, Tsutomu Yamaguchi boarded a train. He left behind a city erased from existence. He left Hiroshima alive. Yamaguchi returned home to Nagasaki, a city untouched by the horror he had just escaped. His house still stood. The streets were still busy. And most importantly, his family was alive. Relief washed over him, but did not last long. Despite his injuries and exhaustion, on the morning of August 9th, he did what millions of ordinary people do every day. He went to work. At the office, Yamaguchi tried to explain what he had witnessed in Hiroshima. He spoke of a single bomb that erased an entire city, of a flash brighter than the sun, of fire falling from the sky. But his words sounded impossible. His supervisor dismissed the story. One bomb cannot destroy an entire city, they said. It's not realistic. At that exact moment, the sky outside the window turned white. The atomic bomb, known as Fat Man, detonated above Nagasaki. Once again, the world ended. The explosion ripped through the city with unimaginable force. Windows shattered. Walls collapsed. People were thrown like leaves in a storm. Yamaguchi was slammed into the ground again. Fire consumed the air. Shockwaves tore through flesh and steel alike. Screams echoed, then vanished. One man standing inside both nightmares. And once again, Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived. Alive. Yamaguchi and his family survived the second blast. But survival was only the beginning of their suffering. Radiation sickness slowly invaded their bodies. Hair fell out. Fever burned endlessly. Weakness followed them for years. The physical wounds healed, but the memories did not. Nightmares haunted his sleep. The sound of explosions echoed in his mind. For decades, Yamaguchi remained silent. He carried the weight of 2 destroyed cities alone. Japan rebuilt. The world moved forward. New generations were born, unaware of the horror. But history had not forgotten him. In 2009, more than 60 years later, the Japanese government officially recognized Tsutomu Yamaguchi as a double atomic bomb survivor, the only person in history to be formally acknowledged as having survived both. In his final years, he chose to speak, not for fame, not for recognition, but as a warning. He spoke against nuclear weapons, not as a politician, not as a scientist, but as a witness, a man who had seen the end of the world. Twice, Yamaguchi believed his survival had a purpose, not to glorify destruction, not to justify war, not to prove that nuclear weapons could be endured, but to warn the future, because his story was never about one man. It was about responsibility, the responsibility of scientists who build weapons they may never see used, the responsibility of leaders who make decisions from safe distances, the responsibility of nations that forget the human cost behind power.
The real miracle is not that one man survived 2 atomic bombs.
The real miracle would be a world wise enough to never test that survival again. A world where no city is reduced to shadows on walls.
A world where no child is born into radiation and silence.
A world where no one has to stand between 2 mushroom clouds.
And even now, the echo remains. History does not ask us to remember, so we can feel sad. It asks us to remember so we never repeat. Because humanity does not need a 3rd city, and it should never need another survivor like Tsutomu Yamaguchi.
Never forget Hiroshima. Never forget Nagasaki.